Welcome to the first episode of the Jokey videocast. Today's guest is Jens Stadter, Managing Director of the Jokey Group. Hello, Mr. Stadter.
Hello, Mrs. Fruelf.
Plastic and plastic packaging have pretty much become an everyday part of our lives. On the one hand, we will soon have 8 billion people who need to be fed. But on the other hand, in view of the impending climate crisis, we also have to deal responsibly with the resources we have. We're all shocked when we see pictures of littered oceans. What does that mean for you? How do you deal with these enormous challenges as one of the leading manufacturers of plastic packaging?
Yes, this is an important topic, and the littering of the oceans is a problem, not only of the oceans, which we see in the media, but the littering of the entire environment in general. And of course, plastic is a part of this, which we often see, and of course, we have a responsibility as a distributor or producer of plastic packaging. It goes without saying that we take this responsibility seriously, and that we have to align our strategy in line with long-lasting plastic, which of course has its right to exist in order to avoid the littering of the oceans, of the entire world, and to achieve a sustainability concept so that plastic is returned to a recycling system.
What do you think is the ideal packaging?
Made from only one material, thin-walled, light, efficiently and energy efficiently produced, and meeting the corresponding requirements. In other words, what is packaging? Packaging protects goods in the long term, and not just in the short term. And as a result, we have to take into account that these goods are only produced once and can be transported safely from A to B. However, packaging must also be put back into a cycle where it can be recycled. That is the basic prerequisite, that it is not only disposable, but can live through as many stages of its entire life cycle as possible.
Today, many people actually want a world without plastic packaging. We have packaging-free shops as a big trend. We have moved away from plastic bags. We take home paper bags with a better conscience. The question is whether this return to these alternative packaging materials like paper, glass, metal that we all had before plastic packaging is the way to a better plastic-free future.
You can, of course, eliminate plastic, but when we started making plastic buckets, the very reason for doing that was that you could manufacture them more energy efficient, more ecological. What were the alternatives? It was metal buckets or corresponding other products made of glass. What are the advantages? Plastic is much lighter. This also means that they are easier to transport. First of all, they have a better CO2 balance than heavy products. They are stackable and can be used again if being recycled. But also the braking strength is, of course, much better than that of glass. The eco-balance and CO2 emissions of other packaging materials than plastic are in part significantly worse, as well as the manufacturing processes themselves. The recyclability of glass, for example, with 1600 degrees in the melt. And I simply believe a future without packaging made of plastic will be very difficult. And therefore, I believe that the durability of plastic can also be an advantage. But the prerequisite, as I've already said, would be that you add it back into the cycle.
In the packaging industry, Jokey is one of the pioneers of sustainable packaging. In the early 1990s, they launched the bucket made from recyclates, for example, reprocessed plastics. Not so successful at the time. In the meantime, you have developed a whole concept for sustainability for your products, the so-called Jokey Eco Concept. You have just relaunched it as Jokey Eco Concept 2.0. So what is actually new about it?
In the Eco Concept 1.0, we were more focused on the product features, that is, how to design a product that is more sustainable, more consistent, and more energy efficient. The second aspect that moved us more was in the second concept, Eco Concept 2.0, the integral approach as a company. You've just mentioned the topic of climate neutrality, and we as a company, as a manufacturing company, have also focused on the topic of the CO2 balance as a sustainability manifesto, but also on our responsible use of the resources that we use to manufacture our products. It doesn't matter whether it is a container made of plastic or whether you want to or can produce a machine. However, how do we deal with the resources of energy? And that's the issue. And that's also very important, as I've already said, the issue of 360 degrees responsibility. For us, products do not end at the loading ramp, but we want to create the prerequisite that our product, which we put into circulation, can also be recycled again by our partners, and we have now launched the concept for this. This should offer us and our customers, and also joint NGOs, approaches to working on this issue of sustainability. The three pillars are economy, ecology, and social aspects.
Schauen wir uns doch gleich mal die Grafik dazu an.
Let's have a look at the graphic, then you can get a better idea of the fields of action of your Jokey Eco Concept 2.0.
Yes, the basis of our new concept Eco 2.0 is the eco strategy, accompanied by eco resources and eco design. If you look at eco strategy as the integral approach of a company, let's say the area on the right, eco resources and eco design, is much more oriented toward the product features that we already presented in the first concept, Eco Concept 1.0. From the left, we start with Eco Company, the integrated approach. We as a company, as we, of course, see ourselves in the responsibility, not only in the context of the packaging discussion, but also as a manufacturing company as well. How can we use our energy sources in a way that conserves resources? The second subject area, the topic of 360 degrees responsibility. Above all, here we talk about, as already mentioned, how we can close the loop, not only deliver our products to the loading ramp, but also from the ramp to our customer and from our customer back into the cycle. And the third topic, the CO2 balance, is, of course, also very important for us. How do we manage to produce climate-neutral products or climate-neutral reproductions? But at the same time, how can we reduce CO2 emissions in our production processes? For example, by using modern technologies and thus producing our products in a way that conserves resources.
Damit entsprechend ressourcenschonend unsere Produkte zu produzieren.
If we both look into the future, you have already mentioned climate neutrality. When will we have climate-neutral packaging?
Yes, there are still some steps to take, step by step, small steps, and we are in the process of offering appropriate solutions. At the moment, we have to help ourselves a bit by offering certificates to our customers who request them. Already today, we can create compensation and are currently offering this to our customers, and it's a bit of a journey to get there. But the vision is very clear. By 2030, Jokey will be climate neutral, not only with regard to the product, but also for the entire company.
Welche Rolle spielen denn Materialien?
What role do materials and design play in the circular economy? Has awareness changed significantly in the meantime? For example, the recycled bucket that you launched in 1991 is now back in the limelight? Perhaps the time is ripe.
Wäre doch vielleicht reif.
Ja, Sekundärrohstoffe.
Yes, secondary raw materials in the form of recyclates are, of course, the be-all and end-all, because at 360 degrees, the materials keep turning over and over again, and especially in the non-food sector. Recycled buckets give us a huge opportunity to use materials again and again. Yes, in 1991, you mentioned it, the market was not quite ready for it. In the meantime, almost 30 years later, we have hit on another highlight with the campaign Gray is the New Green, and we're seeing more and more that non-food customers in particular are showing interest. We also see that it can play an important role in their sustainability concepts. This means that we're using more and more recycled materials obtained from household collections, from the yellow bag, for example, which are then made available to us as recyclates, which are very comparable in terms of product features and almost identical to virgin, the normal material that we buy. But of course, with the aspect of sustainability, they should and can play a completely different role and significance. Now the time is perhaps more ripe than ever, and the pressure on our customers, on us as people, to deal with raw materials and our environment in a more sustainable way has increased.
Nachhaltiger umzugehen.
Immer mehr
An increasing number of end consumers are also focusing more and more on sustainability. You also have the recycling campaign, Gray is the New Green. Awareness has grown, especially among younger people. This also means sustainable packaging. Do you also notice this among your customers, for example, among your manufacturers and fillers? Is there an increased demand there as well?
festzustellen?
Trifft genau den Zahn der Zeit. Und,
This is exactly in line with the times, and we also see it in the campaigns that we run with our partners and our companies, our customers, who also use alternative materials. For example, also from ocean plastic recyclates, in this case, for example, from the collection from the oceans, and here, for example, from fishing nets, which are then grinded. We already have customers today who use post-consumer material in addition to these ocean-based plastic recyclates, and so they use almost 100%, I would say, from the circular economy to offer their product. When it comes to decoration, you don't see that at all. The bucket may be gray or silver, but with the IML or the decoration that we offer, you can present the bucket in all the colors of the world and also have the corresponding corporate design. And what's inside has to be protected. And we also ensure that with our respective materials.
Wie stehen Sie denn zum Einsatz nachwachsender Rohstoffe?
What is your position on the use of renewable raw materials? You have that here as a second point right next to eco-resources, biopolymers, so to speak. Packaging made from corn or sugarcane is already on the market. Is this perhaps a way to a plastic-free future?
Plastikfreiere Zukunft.
Sinn und Zweck ist es ja,
The purpose is to use renewable raw materials that do not harm the environment. Of course, we analyze. We're very close with research and development to many alternative materials, also from renewable raw materials. We can already offer products today, but they come from sustainable cultivation and not from any areas that lead to overexploitation or that have a greater impact on the environment than they really should. At this time, I simply ask the real question: where do the materials come from, and are they really as sustainable as is sometimes propagated?
teilweise propagiert wird.
So again, you have to look very carefully as with the alternative packaging materials in the end.
That's how it is. There isn't always black and white. There is gray. And as a consumer, you have to get a little closer and see whether the products are really as sustainable as they're advertised to be.
Entsprechend propagiert werden.
Wie kann man denn beispielsweise Design nachhaltiger gestalten?
How can you make design sustainable? When I buy organic yogurt, for example, it now has a fancy paper sleeve. Underneath is a thin plastic cup, and on top is an aluminum lid. When I want to dispose of the whole thing, I basically have 3 different materials that I have to separate so that it can be recycled. That means the paper sleeve is disposed of in the waste paper bin, the rest in the recycling bin. However, I have to know that because it's a bit complicated for consumers.
Für Verbraucher.
Das ist so definitiv. Und als ich vor 2 Jahren bei
That's definitely the case. And when I started at Jokey 2 years ago, one of the first things I learned was that you have to separate the aluminum lid from the yogurt jar. Otherwise, it's not recyclable. And I think there's a lot of educational work to be done here as well. Because first of all, of course, the cardboard or the cardboard sleeve is in the spotlight. But if you don't separate it into its components, then it's a misthrow. And unfortunately, misthrows are increasing more and more. And of course, there's a need for educational work here too. Jokey itself takes a very clear approach. We want to offer monomaterial. That means our packaging is made of one material, polypropylene, and we can throw it 1-to-1 into the yellow bag, metaphorically speaking, and the product is 100% recyclable. That means we're trying to become thinner-walled. That is the approach we're taking. And in the last 30 years, we have reduced the material thickness by almost 40% while maintaining the same product quality and corresponding safety for the products we transport every day. And our R&D engineers are also working on how we can optimize the bucket design so that we can reduce the amount of plastic and still ensure the product features that we need to get products safely from A to B in an energy-efficient manner.
auch sicherzustellen.
Kunststoff ist also durchaus eine wichtige Ressource, sagen Sie?
Plastic is definitely an important resource, you say. The durability, which many see as a curse when we think of the pictures of the littered oceans, can also be an advantage if the raw material remains in the circular economy, provided that it is handled carefully.
Der in der Kreislaufwirtschaft verbleibt.
Das ist so. Und
That's the way it is. And what is packed can only be produced once. What use is it if I don't have packaging and the goods I want to transport spoil or come to harm, and then I have to use the same resources again to produce the whole product again? Therefore, packaging is protection and at the same time, transport safety. But as you rightly say, it also serves to ensure that our ecological balance sheet and the resources that we use today as human beings are also secured in the long term, and that the goods are not spoiled or being damaged.
Schaden nehmen.
You presented the concept of Jokey to us, Mr. Stadter. Thank you very much for this.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Mrs. Frau.
Jokey. Packaging done wisely. Jokey.com.